Well, on that cheerful note, it's Advent. It's this season of 4 weeks of preparation. Hasn't happened in our house. We were traveling for Thanksgiving, but usually this is the week in our house when the tree goes up, right? The lights go on the front porch, the ornaments are hung, and we begin to prepare our house. Megan and I were talking, and we're going to host an open house again this year for the first time since the pandemic, which means Pastor has to clean up all of his stuff that's around the house. And so it's a beginning of preparing to welcome you all and guests and family into our homes in this season before Christmas. Advent is that, but for our spirits. Advent is a time to prepare our hearts and our spirits. Not just retell the story of what happened 2,000 years ago, but also to prepare for the return of Christ in glory whenever that will come, and to prepare to welcome Christ into our hearts and to our homes today and now. It's the season when the world begins to go on fast forward, right? We had to run by meeting up with some family last night on our way back into the town, and so we stopped at a mall because it's a big parking lot, and we couldn't find a parking spot at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. Things are getting faster. Getting out Christmas cards if you do that sort of thing. Going to Christmas parties, doing all the Christmas shopping, getting up all the decorations, talking to family, getting all the end of the year stuff done at home and at work so you can be ready to flip the calendar over. It's exhausting. In the midst of all that, Advent says stop. Take a deep breath. Be present now. And while the world is spinning faster and faster, Advent calls us to go slower, to listen, to really just be as we wait and prepare. Out of all the seasons of the church year, I think Advent is my favorite just because of that, because it is so contrary this time of year from everything else that we hear. It's so contrary from the yelling of the commercials telling us to buy and purchase and get and need. And Advent says you have enough. Advent says you are enough, just as you are right now. It also happens that as Advent begins, the world around us is beginning to tell cheery Christmas stories that make our hearts warm, whether it's the Hallmark Christmas movies or it's the commercials that make you cry for no good reason, right? We've all been there at this time of year. And while all that is happening, Advent begins to tell the story of John the Baptist. The story of Advent doesn't begin with the cute baby in a manger not making any sounds. The story begins with John the Baptist. Some of you know that I collect nativity sets, like this one over here. And my favorite nativity set is actually a play school nativity set. Because in all the pieces of this play school nativity set, it's the only one I own, and I own too many. Out of all of them I own, it's the only one that has a John the Baptist. It has this little John the Baptist figure, and he's got an axe, and he's standing next to a stump. If anybody wants to get into the argument about whether you ought to be saying Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, remind them that "you brood of vipers" is a traditional Christmas greeting. You lying snakes. You see, John the Baptist won't allow us to have any sort of over-sentimentalized Christmas. John the Baptist won't let us have a Hallmark Christmas special sort of Christmas. At the heart of John the Baptist's message is this: if we are going to have real hope for this world in our lives, we must tell the truth. If we are going to have real, meaningful hope, and what else is Advent and Christmas than hope? If we are going to have real, meaningful hope, step one is learning to tell the truth. Isaiah talked about it back in the 8th century. Isaiah talks about it this way. Isaiah says, "Justice is pushed aside and righteousness stands far off, because truth has stumbled in the public square and honesty cannot enter. Truth is missing," says Isaiah. Isaiah is describing a world that needs a Messiah, a world that needs salvation, a world that needs redemption. Truth is missing from the public square. The world hasn't changed, has it? We spend so much of our lives dancing around the issue. We spend so much of our lives putting a positive spin on things, looking for the good. We talk about the things that are wrong in the world, and people say to us, why can't you just focus on the good stuff? Why do you have to be so negative? Because if this world is going to heal, we have to name the wounds. Because if we are going to find our way back into the light, we have to name the shadows in which we stand. Because if we are going to be redeemed and saved from our brokenness and sin, there has to actually be brokenness and sin that we acknowledge. As a pastor, I have entrance into families all over the place. You can talk about the family in which alcoholism runs rampant, but everybody laughs about Uncle Joe at Christmas and doesn't talk about the truth. We're alcoholics and we need help. We talk about how much stuff we really have. And the truth that until we name that in this country we worship stuff. Right? The fastest growing industry in our country. You know what it is? Warehouses, storage facilities. Because not only do we have the biggest houses that have been purchased in this country in generations, that's still not enough room for all of our stuff. We worship wealth. The people we elect are people with the sorts of incomes that you and I will never see in our lifetime. But they must be successful and good because they're wealthy. We have to name the sickness that cuts through our hearts and our communities. Some of you know I've spent more time than I would possibly care to in the last 3 months in the dentist chair. Wound up ultimately with 2 teeth extracted because I was walking around just popping Advil, saying it's not that bad. Doesn't everybody have a toothache every now and then? But until I said something is wrong that needs fixed, it never got better. It's interesting how that works. If we don't name it, it will never get better. Hope tells the truth. It's the reason that every year our story starts with John the Baptist. John the Baptist, who didn't preach to the people who came out to him and said, "Oh, it's okay. You're basically a good person." He said, "You need to change your life. You need to look at your life and tell the truth. And in particular, he said it to those who have power and authority and wealth as they came out to him. In particular, he said it to those who have control over other people. Whether John the Baptist or Isaiah, we like to think of, you and I, we like to think of sin and brokenness of, oh, well, I made a mistake. Isaiah reminds us that it runs through our whole society. It runs through our whole communities. It's not just the choices that David makes. It's how we together live out our lives in public. Truth, says Isaiah, is missing. It has stumbled in the public square. Which means the solution is to speak truth in the public square. The solution is to bring truth back into it. The solution is to bring honesty back into it. We prepare our hearts and lives, our spirits and our souls for the joy and hope of Advent, for the joy and hope of Christmas. This is the first step, to tell the truth. Tell the truth about the brokenness in the community of which we are part. We could do some of that. Why don't we? Anybody know the median income in this zip code? You want to guess?
70 to 80K.
70 to 80K. Any other guesses?
129.
129. Somebody's been doing their homework. It's 110. The median household income in our zip code is 110. You know what it is in the country? It's 55,000. It's literally twice in this community what it is in the rest of the country. And still, there are people tonight that will go hungry. There are people tonight that will sleep out in the cold in these woods around our homes and our businesses. That's brokenness. That's sin. Right? And it's uncomfortable, isn't it? Because I'm a part of that. We start there and we tell truth, and then we, as John the Baptist says, we change our hearts and our lives. It's not just saying that we want to do things differently, it's doing things differently. We maybe volunteer with the Montgomery County Food Bank or contribute to their holiday efforts. We maybe volunteer or contribute to the Montgomery County Women's Center, helping those who are in need. Maybe we take out our wallet when somebody says, "Do you have any spare change?" And we say, "Yes, in fact, I do." We don't worry about what they're going to do with it. Because frankly, I was going to go buy a cup of coffee that's too expensive and I didn't really need anyway. Why should I care what they do with it? A voice crying out in the wilderness, "Prepare the way for the Lord and make the Lord's path straight, for every valley will be filled, every mountain and hill shall be leveled, the crooked made straight and the rough places made smooth." Looking with honesty at this world, can I be honest? It sucks. I don't like to do it. I like to sit down on my couch and watch TV that makes me feel good. And watch TV that makes me feel like everything's going to end up with a happy ending. I don't like to watch the news. I don't like to read commentary about the world. It's depressing. It's frustrating. It's enraging. But if we are going to heal the world, it starts with telling the truth. If we have any hope, if we have any hope in a God who comes to save us, it is not a God who saves us without us. We need to be honest about what needs changed in our lives and in the world, and then begin the work. As we decorate the trees, let us also work for justice and truth and peace. As we decorate our homes, let us also care for the homeless and the hungry. As we celebrate the God of love, let us also speak out against hatred and injustice and cruelty. Hope begins with honesty.